What you are about to hear will expose the biggest thieves in music history. I have undeniable proof that these reggae icons had their greatest hits ripped off in broad daylight. The way one of these artists retaliated is shocking. You will not believe it was legal. You need to watch until the end to see the most shocking theft of all. Steely and Clevie never imagined that a rhythm they built in the quiet heat of a Kingston studio would become a battlefield stretched across continents and decades. Wycliffe Steely Johnson tapping out a skeletal beat, Cleveland Clevie Brown shaping its pulse, a loop that felt like scaffolding for movement itself. The rhythm wasn't just rhythm, it was foundation, backbone, a coded signal passed through sound systems, clubs, and radios. But when the dembow pattern crossed oceans and reshaped itself into the engine of reggaeton, the men who birthed it saw their creation lifted into charts, global tours, streaming revenue, television placements, Grammys, and stadium concerts, while their own pockets remained still. The conflict was not simply about money. It was about memory, about authorship, about the right to say, "It began with us." Their lawsuit against some of the biggest names in global music was not a sudden act of aggression. It was the culmination of years watching something they made become unrecognizable under the force of scale, replication, and silence. That silence, the refusal of acknowledgement, is where the wound grew. Meanwhile, Max Romeo stood in another corner of the same struggle, a struggle older than streaming platforms or contemporary copyright lawyers. Max Romeo's voice in Chase the Devil carried the incantation of resistance, biblical fire stitched into riddim, but as the years passed, the song began reappearing inside other worlds. The prodigy reshaped it into rave fury. Jay-Z's producer looped the invocation into Lucifer, letting Max Romeo's voice become a ghostly priest calling from beneath glossy American production. And yet Max Romeo found himself fighting for what should have been automatic: acknowledgement, fair compensation, the right to not have his work absorbed into another's glory, while his own legacy remained financially restrained. The echo traveled far, yet the source was forced to ask others to remember who started the vibration. Bunny Wailer spent nearly his whole life insisting that memory mattered. Neville Livingston knew that music did not just belong to the listener who loved it or the audience who danced to it. It belonged first to the one who created it. He watched contracts shift under pressure, watched companies acquire masters in publishing in boardrooms far removed from any studio in Kingston or trenches of Trenchtown. He watched the legacy of the Wailers transform into an industry, a brand, a symbol branded onto shirts, posters, keychains, documentaries, remixes, reissues. But symbols can be profitable even when the symbol bearers are ignored. Bunny Wailer fought with record labels not for vanity, but for preservation. History was being written by those who had never touched the soil where reggae was born. He refused to let the memory of Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and himself be managed by people who did not know the price they paid to build that music. His legal battles were not just personal. They were a demand that Jamaican art not be handled like extractable resource. Desmond Dekker had given the world Israelites a sound that cracked open doors across the Atlantic. The song traveled farther than many artists of his era could physically go, but the financial aftermath was never equal to that reach. When success arrives early, contracts can be traps disguised as opportunity. Dekker's estate faced tangled royalty claims, unpaid percentages, disappearing publishing lines. Those who built the foundation of a global genre rarely received what later artists or corporations made from it. Fame does not guarantee stability. A hit song does not guarantee security. The world may sing your chorus forever, yet the hands that wrote it may still be broke. That contradiction sits heavy in the story of music ownership. Yellowman knew what it meant to create something others could imitate. Dancehall's earliest evolution was shaped by his voice, cadence, phrasing, swagger. His likeness, vocal tone, and lyrical playbook became the blueprint from which younger artists took templates. The question was never whether they respected him. Many did deeply. The question was how influence becomes indistinguishable from appropriation. When something becomes standard, the author disappears into the collective. Yellowman watched his innovations become the norm, his identity absorbed into the genre itself. Yet unlike others, his conflict was rarely framed as legal battle. Rather, it became the silent lesson that originality can dissolve in its own success. When you invent a language, others will eventually speak it without citing your name. Florgan did not allow silence to swallow his voice. When Miley Cyrus released We Can't Stop, the echo of "we run things, things no run we" was too close, too familiar, too direct to be dismissed as coincidence. The legal confrontation that followed was not absurd or exaggerated. It was a reminder that lyrical heritage is intellectual property. The global industry may assume that dancehall's informality means looseness of authorship, but Florgan refused that narrative. What Jamaican artists say is not disposable. What they build is not simply raw material for larger Western pop acts to refine and repurpose. Even if the lawsuit ended in a settlement behind closed doors, the message remained: you cannot take our words without acknowledging their origin. Article Sound System's accusation against Dua Lipa over levitating entered another domain of the same tension. Here, a relatively small reggae-rooted group confronted the weight of a global superstar's machinery. They were not claiming imitation of lyrics or vocal style, but structural resemblance, melodic contour, rhythmic DNA. The court later ruled in Dua Lipa's favor, determining the similarity insufficient for legal compensation. Yet the case remains significant because it proves something essential. Reggae and dancehall sound design, the swing, the bass pulse, the syncopation is now global currency. The question is no longer whether reggae influences the world. The question is who gets paid when that influence becomes product. Spice has built herself in the furnace of competition. Her voice has always been sharp because dancehall is a battleground where artists must defend not only their name but their originality. Accusations of biting are taken personally because identity is everything. In dancehall, your style is your fingerprint. Spice's clashes, feuds, and verbal battles represent the internal policing of authenticity within the culture. It is not always about legal paperwork. Sometimes it is about a community's refusal to let creative theft go unchallenged. To borrow is natural. To steal without acknowledgement is violation. Dancehall's economy of respect depends on the ability to trace lineage honestly. Vybz Kartel operates inside that same battlefield, but on a larger scale. As one of dancehall's most prolific writers and stylists, his influence is nearly unmatched. His metaphors, vocal allusions, rhythmic phrasing, slang constructions, and thematic reframing have been absorbed by countless artists. The dispute around Kartel is rarely about one specific song or one specific case. It is about an ongoing struggle for credit in a genre built on constant reinvention. Dancehall is fast. Trends shift overnight. Flows migrate quickly. Kartel's impact is visible in artists who have never met him, never spoken to him, never even listened to full albums. But influence becomes theft when acknowledgement disappears. Kartel's presence inside the culture remains as judge, defendant, witness, and creator all at once. Bob Marley's music became anthem, scripture, tourism symbol, revolution language. But the scale of his legacy made his catalog a battlefield that has lasted far longer than his life. His estate has been forced to guard his image like sacred relic. Unauthorized merchandise, unlicensed samples, commercial appropriation of his face for campaigns that contradict his principles. All of these emerge as global capitalism realized the profitability of Marley's identity. The irony is painful. A man who sang against exploitation became one of the most exploited icons in the world. His family continues to fight for the right to determine how his memory is used. Marley's music does not belong to the world. The world simply carries it. Ownership remains with those who bear his blood and his labor. The conflict running through all these stories is not isolated. It is systemic. Jamaican music has been global for generations, but global recognition has not come with global compensation. The sound system culture that built reggae and dancehall was communal, but the industry that profited from it was corporate. Rhythm creation was often collaborative, improvisational, and fast. But publishing law rewards those who file paperwork first, not those who create energy. The industry was never designed to protect the originators. It was designed to scale the product. When younger genres were born, hip-hop, reggaeton, Afrobeats each carried Jamaican rhythm inside its bones. Yet the inventors of those skeletons rarely stood on the same stages as the artists who carried those genres into arenas and broadcast platforms. The spread of Jamaican musical DNA was cultural inheritance, but the financial pathways were blocked. The people who made the music were often unable to follow the music wherever it traveled, but the tides are shifting. The lawsuits filed by producers and estates are not only attempts to reclaim revenue, they are attempts to rewrite the narrative. They are demands that reggae not be treated as raw material, but as authored culture. They are saying, we are not folklore. We are architects. The world loves the rhythm. The world rarely asks who created it. The cases involving Steely and Clevie, Max Romeo, Bunny Wailer, Desmond Dekker, Florgon, Spice, Vybz Kartel, Article Sound System, Yellowman, and the Marley estate are not random or scattered events. They form a single lineage of resistance. The fight is not just for money. It is for authorship, dignity, continuity, memory. Jamaican music shaped the world. The world must now learn to say the names of those who shaped it. Tell me, which of these music thefts made you the most angry? Let me know which artists you think deserve the biggest payout. Share your own guess for who the biggest musical thief really is. I read every single comment down below. Follow for more true stories the music industry does not want you to know.